Shalom Aleichem, Mishpachim. I made a mistake, an honest mistake. I've been reading the leap year in Tanya for this new cycle. So I'm going to try to catch up. I'm going to start from chapter 4, the 27th of Kislev, which was yesterday, or no, 2 days ago, because today's the 29th of Kislev. So I'm going to catch up with up to the I'll read the 27th of Kislev reading, which is the beginning of chapter 4. And we are not in a leap year. I'm sorry if I'm confusing anyone. This Jewish year is not a leap year. So let us begin. Chapter 4, 27th of Kislev. Lessons in Tanya. In addition to its 10 faculties discussed in chapter 3, every divine soul, Nefesh Elokit, possesses 3 garments. The soul possesses 3 auxiliary powers, which are its instruments of expression. Like garments, they can be donned or shed at will. When the soul utilizes any of these 3 powers, it is clothed in them. When it does not use them, it is divested of them. Also, just as garments give expression to their wearer's beauty and importance, so, too, when the soul dons and utilizes these garments, its intellect and emotion find expression. They, the garments, are thought, speech, and action, as they find expression in the 613 commandments of the Torah. The Alter Rebbe now goes on to explain how the divine soul expresses itself through these 3 garments. For when a person actively fulfills all precepts which require physical action, when he dons the tefillin or fulfills the commandments of tzitzis, etc., and with his power of speech he occupies himself in expounding all the 613 commandments and the laws governing their fulfillments. The person's speech is immersed in the study of Torah, which includes the exposition of the commandments. For example, Tractate Brachot in the Talmud deals with the commandments and the laws of blessings. Tractate Shabbat deals with the commandments and laws of Shabbat observance, etc. And with his power of thought, he comprehends all that he is capable of understanding in Pardes, the four levels of Torah. The word Pardes, whose literal meaning is orchard, is here used as an acronym of the 4 Hebrew words Peshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod, meaning respectively plain sense, which is Peshat, intimation, which is Remez, homiletical exposition, which is Drush, and esoteric meaning, which is Sod, the 4 levels of scriptural interpretation. When then all of his soul's 613 organs are clothed in the 613 commandments of the Torah. Just as the human body consists of 248 organs and 365 blood vessels, corresponding to the Torah's 248 positive commandments and 365 prohibitive commandments, 613 in all. The soul similarly comprises 613 organs. The spiritual counterpart of the 613 bodily organs, each organ corresponds to a specific commandment. When, through its 3 garments, thought, speech, and action, the soul embraces all 613 commandments, then all 613 organs of the soul are enclosed in all 613 commandments, each organ of the soul in its related commandment. Note the Alter Rebbe's emphasis of the word all the precepts which require physical action, in expounding all the 613 commandments, all that he is capable of understanding. Should his garments fail to include all 613 commandments, were he to omit one specific commandment, then the corresponding organ of the soul will remain bereft of its mitzvah garment. Thus we see, in a general sense, how fulfillment of all the commandments with one's thoughts, speech, and action clothes the entire soul in all 613 commandments of the Torah. The Alter Rebbe now goes on to specify which components of the soul are clothed by which particular garment. Specifically, the Chabad of his soul, his intellectual faculties, are clothed in the comprehension of Torah, which he comprehends in the 4 levels of Pardes of the Torah, to the extent of his mental capacity and according to the supernal root of his soul. One's mental capacity determines how much he may understand. The root of his soul determines the area in Torah for which he will have the greatest aptitude. For example, one whose soul is related to the level of Peshat is more likely to comprehend the straightforward meaning of the words of Torah. A soul related to Remez, which is hint, will delve to the stratum of implied meaning underlying the words, and so on. When the person comprehends Torah to the extent of his mental capacity, Then the Chabad components of his soul are clothed in the garment of thought, of Torah. Thought as it is related to Torah. And the midot, namely the emotions of fear and love of the Almighty, together with their offshoots and ramifications, are clothed in the fulfillment of the commandments, in deed and in word. In word, meaning in the study of Torah, which is the equivalent of all the commandments. The Alter Rebbe's previous statement that in comprehending Torah, the soul's faculty of intellect clothes itself in thought requires no further elaboration. It goes without saying that the intellect can comprehend Torah only through the vehicle of thought. His latter statement, however, that the midot are clothed in the fulfillment of the commandments in deed or in word, requires further amplification. What connection do the midot of fear and love have with action and speech? The seat of the emotions is in the heart. How do they come to clothe themselves in actions which are done with one's hand, in donning tefillin, for example, or in speech where one uses his mouth, such as in oral Torah study? In answer to this question, the Alter Rebbe explains that completeness in the performance of the commandments demands love and fear of God. One can bring to his fulfillment of the commandments the fullness generated by vitality and depth of feeling only when he is imbued with fear and love of the Almighty. In the Alter Rebbe's words, for love is the root of a Jew's observance of all the 248 positive commands. From it they issue forth, and without it they have no true substance. For he who fulfills them in truth is he who loves God's name and who truly desires to cleave to him. Now, one cannot truly cleave to him except through the fulfillment of the 248 positive commandments. Thus, one's love of God and desire to cleave to him dictate that he observe the commandments. Why is it possible to cleave to God only by fulfilling the commandments? For they are the 248 organs of the King, of God, King of the universe, as it were, as is explained elsewhere. Just as each of the organs of a human being is a vessel for the particular soul power that clothes itself in it, the eye is a vessel for the power of sight, the ear for hearing, and so on. So is each commandment a vessel for the specific aspect of God's will, the supernal will, which clothes itself in the particular commandment. Each commandment expresses not only the supernal will, that a specific act being carried out, but also the particulars of its observance. Thus, it is understood that by performing the commandments, one achieves unity with God. Whose will they express? It follows, then, that love of God clothes or expresses itself in one's performance of the 248 positive commandments. It is their root and life force, which leads one to observe them with the totality of one's being. For when one loves God and desires to cleave to him, he will perform his commandments as he would perform a task for a dear friend, with delight and zest, and with all of his being. Fear is the root of one's observance of the 365 prohibitive commandments. For he, the God-fearing person, will fear to rebel against the Supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be he, by acting in defiance of his will. He will therefore refrain from anything that God forbade. At this level, the word fear is taken in its simple sense, trepidation before the severity of God's command. Or a deeper level of fear, that he feels ashamed before God's greatness, so that he will not rebel against the all-seeing eyes of his glory by doing what is evil in his eyes. Namely, any of the abominable things hated by God, which are the klipot, the husks, the shell, and sitra achra, the other side, that which is the opposite of holiness, which draw their nurture from man below in this world, and have their hold in him, so that they be able to derive their nurture and life through him, through his violation of the 365 prohibitive commandments. When a person transgresses a prohibitive commandment, God forbid, he provides the klipot with additional strength and vitality. Since klipot and the sitra achra are entities which conceal godliness and holiness, and are as such despised by God, the Jew therefore guards himself against transgressing. He is ashamed to transgress and give the klipot strength and life. Thus, fear of God clothes itself in the observance of prohibitive commandments. For one's fear of God enables him to withstand temptation and refrain from transgression. We now understand clearly how fear and love of God are related to the fulfillment of the commandments, and how the midot are the root and life force in the performance of commandments. And that is 27th of Kislev, reading for Lessons in Tanya. Have a wonderful day. Boker Tov.